So welcome everyone to tonight's Women's Leadership Fireside Chat. This is a new monthly program that we are starting because we want to have more talks with women about leadership. And I would really welcome any comments that you would have if you want to send me an email about future speakers that you would like to see, or changing of the format, or anything, any kind of feedback would be really, really welcome, because this is something new that we're trying out and we want to know if it's helpful and useful to everyone. So tonight, I'm very pleased to have Dr. Tamara Ledley, who's here as an MIT alum, and we do feature MIT alums most of the time. It's not all the time. And so what we would like to do is have a little discussion together. So I'm going to ask Tamara some questions about her so you learn about her career and her journey. And then after our questions are done, we'll do it for about 30 minutes. Then we are going to open it up for discussion with everyone in the audience. So Tamara, thank you for coming today. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your career to date.
Okay, so my background, I'll do the beginning parts in short. I trained in atmospheric science and climate science at MIT. I got my PhD there, and I got my bachelor's degree before that in astronomy at the University of Maryland. I did climate science and earth science, system science research for about 15 years. And then transitioned to earth and climate science education, and that was for the most of my career. Then in 2017, I was trying to find ways of making my work more impactful. So I stepped back and I became a fellow in Harvard's Advanced Leadership Initiative. And in that context, I developed a framework for a climate teacher professional learning community, which I'm actually now trying to pilot through the Blue Hill Observatory and Science Center. So that's sort of the very short summary of getting to where I am now. But now I'm involved in multiple efforts around climate change education. So at the Blue Hill Observatory and Science Center, we're actually actively looking for funding. I've engaged a group of 6 teachers in the greater Boston area, and we're having conversations about building that pilot. I also teach global climate change at Bentley University. It's a business school, so I'm engaging undergraduate business students and trying to help them understand the relevance of understanding climate science to some degree for their future business careers, making them see that relevance of that connection, and telling them, I just really want them to know enough so that they know when they need to get expertise. I'm not expecting them to be climate science experts. Then I also have engaged quite a number of people through the Climate Solutions Workshop. I really took advantage of COVID. And because everybody had to move to online venues, I started doing these En-ROADS Climate Solutions Workshops. En-ROADS stands for Energy Rapid Overview and Decision Support Model. And it's developed by Climate Interactive in collaboration with MIT's Sloan Sustainability Initiative. I've done over 40 of those workshops, reaching about 1,200 people. A wide range of audiences and quite international. The one I was just talking about before, this group of girls aged 12 to 15 in India might be my next group, but I've done quite a few of those workshops also. So I'm also an active member in a group of MIT alumni who are focused on education and mobilization around climate change. And then I also serve on the board of directors of the Blue Hill Observatory and Science Center and the board of advisors of the Museum of Science in Boston. So I have my fingers in a lot of different pies right now.
Great, thank you. So now we're going to sort of dive a little deeper. I was wondering what your definition of great leadership is, and whether or not you think it turns out to be different for men and women.
Productions is she's a climate scientist, MIT PhD, and
somebody's talking there in the background. So A great leader is somebody who is able to align the passions, energies, and activities of the people they lead towards a collective goal. And there are two kinds of leaders: a servant leader, somebody who listens to the community and is able to bring out the best of that community to move it forward towards its goal. And there's also inspirational leaders who are able to really direct and sort of set the direction of a particular group. In terms of whether it's different for men and women, I don't think the actual implementation is, but how you get there. And the definition is not different, but how you get there and how it's implemented is different. And how you get there is women really struggle to get their voices heard. And so over time, to get into that position of being a leader, I've either had to repetitively and persistently speak up about wanting to be in that position. But then, and I don't think men struggle as much to do that. And then once you're there, it depends on the group you're leading. If you have a mixed group of men and women, it can be different because the men there have to decide that they are willing to have the leadership of a woman. And the organization that I was in during the science education part of my career, it's a nonprofit in Cambridge, Massachusetts called TERC, and they focus on K through 12 math and science education. The staff there is 75% women. And even at that, sometimes it would be the men who would, the few men that were there would dominate the conversation. I was lucky enough to I really worked with people from all over the country in that, while I was at TERC. And I did have a man working on my projects, but I was in the leadership position of the project, but he did a lot of the implementation of the project, and he was very comfortable in that kind of position. So it's that it depends on the community of people that you're with as to how difficult that is. But getting there is, I think, the biggest struggle.
So you sort of talked a little bit about some of the struggles you've had in becoming a leader. And maybe you could focus a little more on the obstacles, because I find that women really love to hear that other women have had obstacles and that they've overcome them, because that keeps us moving and trying to get there. So if you would be willing to share some of your biggest obstacles and how you dealt with them.
Sure. So there are various kinds of situations. Sometimes the easiest ones to take a leadership position in is if you want something to be done and nobody else seems to be interested, diving in and stepping into making it happen is one way to end up being in a leadership position. A lot of times the leadership positions I took were roles that nobody else wanted. And then what would happen is I would be in that leadership position, and then my abilities to make things happen would become apparent and would lead to other leadership responsibilities. And I guess one of my examples of that is back in the mid 1990s, the American Geophysical Union was looking to start a climate change focus group. And I really wanted to be in that focus group, but it was the president of the American Geophysical Union who made that decision. So I contacted him, and I had to be persistent. I had to contact him again and again. I wasn't, at that time, I was sort of in the early to mid part of my career doing, but I was already doing science education. So it was really hard. I was not somebody that he heard of very often. Or if at all, but finally I managed to get onto that committee, and I was on that committee for 4 years when the chair stepped down, and the chair then recommended that I be the next chair. So that was the way I was able to get into that leadership position, but it took a lot of persistence up front to actually even get to be able to be on that committee. There were other times when I was at this organization, TERC, that I mentioned earlier, where I had wanted to be in a leadership role. And I asked early on, I was there for about 20 years. Early on, I asked to be part of the leadership group. And it just dragged on for years. They decided they didn't want it to be any bigger than it was, and the people that were there weren't leaving. And so it took a long time for me to have been, and persistent pushing for me to end up being on that leadership group. And then when the chair of that group left, there was some discussion as who is going to be the next chair, and nobody thought of me. I had to, somebody said, well, none of us want to do that. And I said, well, don't be so sure. And so I put myself forward, and I became the next chair of the center. So those were examples where I had to really push forward. The other was leading projects. When I first started as a postdoc at Rice University, I was on one of the professor's grants, and he actually went on sabbatical and asked me to write his proposal. And it was there that I actually started to learn how to write a proposal to a federal agency. And it got awarded, but the National Science Foundation said they wanted an independent proposal in 9 months. And so I then had to buckle down and write my own proposals. So it was mostly trial by fire to actually, but then I ended up with a lot of experience in writing both research proposals and educational programs proposals. And so this put me in a position to be able to lead those projects. So that was really important to me. So I would say, most importantly, understand what it is you want to get, and then be assertive and make your voices heard. And for women, it's just much, much harder to have your voices be heard.
It's really interesting how we have all been in the situation that you described, where we basically are there, we're doing a great job, and nobody thinks of us as the next leader, unless a guy doesn't want to do the job. So if none of the guys want to do the job, and then you volunteer, that's how we actually get our breaks. And
Yes.
oftentimes there's a new, I guess, concept that I was reading about called the glass cliff. And that's where, for example, a company is not doing well and no man wants to be the next CEO of that company. And so what they do is they say, okay, we'll offer it to a woman because no man will take the job, right? And so the women sometimes, realize that this is happening, or other times they say, okay, well, I'm just going to give it a shot, but they take leadership positions not under the best circumstances. And then sometimes they fail, and then we are sort of blamed. Okay, see, we put a woman in charge and she failed, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the situation was already set up for failure, and some man had already, made the situation so bad, and then, and then it went down the tubes.
So another example, and this kind of a micro example, but it's very representative because it's sometimes very unintentional. As I mentioned, I teach global climate change at Bentley University, this business school. And occasionally I come across articles or websites that might be interest to the entire faculty of the Department of Natural and Applied Sciences that I'm a part of. And so at one point I sent such an article, the link to such an article, to the department chair, who I know very well. We've worked together quite a bit. And he thanked me for the article, and that was the end of it. And 3 days later, my husband, who happens to be a full faculty member, I'm an adjunct professor there, he is a full faculty member, sent the same article, not realizing that I had sent it. And the department chair turned it around, sent it to the entire faculty, and thanked him profusely for this article. And I'm like, 2 days ago, I sent it to you and you didn't send it out to anybody else. For the department, you're supposed to send it to the chair to disperse it so that there's not a lot of extra email. So I actually called that to his attention, the department chair's attention. He was very apologetic. But again, it was not intentional on his part, but was just sort of just the way things happen.
Yeah, it is fascinating. Okay, so let's talk about a little more success stories. So tell us about something that you really are happy with, one of your greatest accomplishments that you would like to share, and why you think this is your greatest accomplishment so far.
Okay, so I was one of the co-founders of what's called the Climate Literacy and Energy Awareness Network. The acronym is CLEAN. And this started in 2008. And in a nutshell, I'll describe what it is a bit, but the most important part of it and the why I'm most proud of that is that it continues today. And so this group formed in 2008. Many of us in that initial group of about 20 people were involved in the development of a document called the Climate Literacy Essential Principles and Fundamental Concepts. This was a document that was supported, the development of it was supported by federal funds. And it was then vetted by the US Global Change Research Program, which is a program of 13 federal agencies. So it was vetted by that program, as well as the Obama White House. And so, but the government could help in the development of that document, but could not advocate for its use. So 20 of us got together in January of 2008. There was a meeting in Washington, DC that we were all there. And we decided that we would start having weekly teleconferences to basically share all the different activities. Each of us were involved in climate change education or climate literacy efforts around the country. And so we decided we were going to have those weekly teleconferences. And first it was on the phone and now on Zoom. And we have been having those weekly teleconferences Tuesday, 1 p.m. Eastern time since January of 2008. During those first couple of years of that project, we applied for funding from the National Science Foundation to develop the process for reviewing and stewarding a collection of educational resources for middle school through undergraduate level on climate change. So that was funded by the National Science Foundation from 2010 to 2013. And one of the part of that project was to find a way to have ongoing funding. And so we were able to establish ongoing funding from NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, to maintain the quality of that collection and the integrity of the review process. And that funding continues to today. Then in December, so I was chair from January 2008 to December of 2016. That's when I stepped down to join the Harvard Advanced Leadership Initiative. But I was doing a tremendous amount of that work as a volunteer. While I had a paid job, I didn't even get paid full time. There just wasn't the funds to be paid full time. So a lot of it was very much volunteer. So I took the few months before I joined the Harvard program to identify all the pieces that I was doing as a volunteer to lead this group and break it into volunteer-sized bites. I formed a Clean Network Leadership Board, which had about 14 people on it. I'm still a member of that board today, but I have not been chair again. And I helped guide that organization, but it has evolved. The activities that have evolved over time, but they're all based on the frameworks that I led the development of. And so both the Clean Network community, and it's now a community of over 800 people, and the Clean Collection to continue today and are a voice in both the national and international conversations about climate change education. So it's because of that long-term aspect of it and its large reach that I'm most proud of that accomplishment.
Great, that is a great accomplishment. I mean, if something lasts for several years, then you can know that it's having an impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really a measure of success. So my last question to you before we open it up to other people's questions is, what advice would you give to women in STEM to help them in their leadership journey?
So I guess that one of the hardest things is to be assertive, especially if that's not part of your natural character trait. I know there's some women that it's easy for them to be assertive, but if you compare the general population of women scientists to men scientists, I think you would find that most women are a little bit more reserved. So be assertive, even if it's not your natural trait, and be persistent. During that time that I was asking to be part of that leadership group at TERC, the company that I was an employee of for 20 years, I also found out that I was getting paid a salary that was significantly lower than others in my organization at the same level. And I want to acknowledge again that this organization was 75% women. And while it felt awkward, I had to point this out. And eventually, within the next pay raise cycle, my salary got adjusted. And then I've already mentioned that I wanted to be chair of the Center of Science Teaching and Learning at that organization. And so put voice to what it is you want. If you're just quiet and hope that people will see you're doing great work and you deserve to be in that position, that's not going to happen. And it is more true for women than for men. Men, I think, have a natural tendency to say what they want. Women don't quite as much. The other thing that I would say is, if it's possible, have a mentor. I can't say I had a mentor. A lot of things I did were on my own. It's much harder for women to have a mentor than for men. One of the things that it became particularly apparent to me was in 2018, MIT had a celebration of two of the very famous professors who had, it was their 100th birthday. So they were no longer around, but they invited all of those of us who had been students during the time of when they were professors to come to the organization, to come to this celebration. And one of the things that I realized then is, at the time, a lot of the students gave stories about how they were at their advisor's home and visiting and doing things in a social context, getting to know each other better, both the other students and the professor. I was never invited to a professor's home. I never had that contact. So I never had that kind of mentorship, even when I was a student at MIT. However, I've tried to think over time, well, how did I manage this? And I must say that if I had to name a mentor that I had, it would be my husband. Excuse me. He understands how hard it is. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I mean, I know how hard it is, because I've been in difficult situations too. So take your time.
So he understands how hard it is for women, because he actually helps women that work in his office. So he's on the biological side of things. He's a MD by training, and he leads a center at Bentley University. A lot of his postdocs are women who are trained as scientists, but are working at a business university because they have difficulty getting positions as women at other universities. But he sees that they're really great in terms of their abilities, and he hires them, and he has great work that comes out of that. In my case, he's in a completely different field. He's the one that suggested that I apply for the Harvard Advanced Leadership Initiative program. It's not something I would have thought of myself. If we're in a situation where we're together, he steps back and lets my voice be heard. And has suggested things to me over time that I should pursue. So that's the mentors are really important, and it's just very hard for a woman to have an effective mentor who really helps them move forward. So that's the advice that I would suggest.
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to now stop the recording so we can all open it up to everyone for questions.